Somewhere around 2,300 years ago, in the Egyptian city of Alexandria, humanity built something it had never built before. Not a temple to a god, not a monument to a king, but a temple to knowledge itself. The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a building full of scrolls. It was an idea. The idea that everything humanity had ever learned could be gathered in one place, preserved, organized, and made available to anyone who walked through its doors. Scholars came from across the ancient world to read there, copy from there, and build on what came before them. For a few centuries, it stood as the closest thing the ancient world had to a single physical home for human understanding. And then, slowly, through fires, through neglect, through the ordinary decay of empires, it was gone. What it represented didn't die with it, but the temple itself did. That pattern, building a temple to knowledge and then watching it fall, only to build another one in its place, is not a one-time event in human history. It's the whole story of human history. Today, we're going to walk through that pattern, from Alexandria to the printing press to the internet, and then look closely at where we actually stand right now, in the middle of building the newest version of that temple, this time out of artificial intelligence. After Alexandria, knowledge scattered. For centuries, what remained of humanity's collected understanding lived in fragments, copied by hand, one manuscript at a time, largely inside monasteries and religious institutions, guarded as much as they were preserved. Access to knowledge became narrow. A single, handwritten book could take a scribe the better part of a year to copy. Literacy itself was rare, concentrated among the wealthy, the religious, and the powerful. Knowledge wasn't demolished the way Alexandria's library physically was, but it became something closer to a locked vault than an open temple, technically preserved, practically inaccessible to almost everyone. Then, in the 1440s, Johannes Gutenberg built a printing press in the German city of Mainz, and the vault door swung open. What had taken a scribe a year could now be produced by the hundreds in a fraction of the time. Within 50 years of Gutenberg's press, tens of millions of printed books existed across Europe, more than had likely been produced by hand in the entire previous millennium. This was, in a very real sense, humanity tearing down the old narrow temple and building a vastly larger one in its place. Suddenly, ideas could spread faster than any single authority could fully control them. The Reformation, the scientific revolution, the Enlightenment, all of them rode on the back of a technology that took knowledge out of the hands of a narrow-guarded class and put it, however imperfectly and unevenly, into wider circulation than the world had ever seen. But even the printing press had walls. Books cost money. Distribution was slow and geographically limited. Literacy remained far from universal for centuries afterward. It was a bigger temple than the one before it, but it was still a temple with a gate, and the gate still excluded most of humanity for most of its existence. Then came the internet, and something happened that made even Gutenberg's revolution look modest by comparison. For the first time in human history, a person virtually anywhere on the planet with a connection could access an enormous share of humanity's collected knowledge instantly at effectively zero marginal cost. Encyclopedias that once required a wealthy household's bookshelf became free and constantly updated. Scientific papers, historical archives, instructional material, entire university courses, all became available to anyone with a device and a signal. This was the temple thrown wide open, its walls pushed out further than anyone in Alexandria or Mainz could have imagined possible. And yet, this temple came down too, or at least it started cracking under its own weight almost as soon as it was built. Not through fire this time, but through flood. The same openness that made the internet an extraordinary temple to knowledge also made it nearly impossible to tell, standing inside it, what was actually knowledge and what was simply noise wearing knowledge's clothing. Misinformation spread with the same frictionless speed as fact. Attention became the currency that mattered most, and attention doesn't reward accuracy nearly as reliably as it rewards emotion, outrage, and spectacle. The library got so large, so fast, that the harder problems stopped being access and became discernment. Having every book in the world open in front of you means very little if you can no longer tell which ones are lying to you and which shelf they're even sitting on. That's roughly where we stand right now, at the edge of the internet era temple's cracks, watching a new structure begin rising in its place, built this time out of artificial intelligence. What makes this new temple different from every version before it isn't just scale, though the scale is real. It's the nature of the thing being built. Alexandria stored knowledge. Gutenberg's press distributed it. The internet made it instantly accessible. What AI is beginning to do is something none of those earlier temples could do on their own. It can synthesize, explain, translate, and reason across that entire accumulated store of human understanding in something close to real time, tailored to the specific question a specific person actually has. A farmer in a remote region can ask a question about crop disease in their own language and get an answer drawn from agricultural research they'd never have found or been able to read on their own. A student without access to a tutor can work through a difficult concept step by step at their own pace at midnight for free. That's not just a bigger library. That's closer to having a knowledgeable guide standing inside the library with you, helping you find not just a book, but the specific page in the specific language at the specific moment you actually need it. But every temple built so far has come with its own version of the same warning, and this one is no exception. Alexandria's temple was vulnerable to fire. The printing press's temple was vulnerable to who controlled the presses. The internet's temple turned out to be vulnerable to noise, drowning signal in an ocean of content optimized for engagement rather than truth. The AI temple carries its own version of that same risk, and it's worth naming honestly, rather than treating this new structure as somehow immune to the pattern. A system trained on humanity's existing knowledge inherits humanity's existing errors, blind spots, and biases along with its insights. A tool that can explain anything instantly also makes it easier than ever to accept an answer without doing the harder work of verifying it, questioning it, or understanding where it actually came from. Convenience and critical thinking have always had an uneasy relationship, and this newest temple raises the stakes on that tension rather than resolving it. There's a reason this pattern keeps repeating instead of ever reaching some final stable form. Every generation that builds a new temple to knowledge is really solving the specific problem of the temple that came before it. Alexandria solved the problem of scattered knowledge with a single location. The printing press solved the problem of the single location's fragility with mass reproduction. The internet solved the problem of print's physical scarcity with digital abundance. And now AI is attempting to solve the problem digital abundance created. Not a shortage of information, but a shortage of the time, context, and expertise needed to actually make sense of it. Each new temple doesn't erase the flaws of the last one completely. It trades one set of limitations for a new set, hopefully smaller, hopefully more manageable, but rarely absent altogether. So here's the honest place to land on all of this. We are, right now, in the middle of watching a new temple to knowledge rise, the way people in minds in the 1450s were watching one rise around them without fully grasping what it would eventually become, and the way scholars in ancient Alexandria once stood inside a temple they assumed, reasonably, might last forever. History suggests this one won't be the final form either. It will solve real problems the internet-era temple never managed to solve, and it will create new ones nobody has fully mapped out yet. What history also suggests, though, is worth holding on to. The temple has never really been the building, the scrolls, the presses, or the servers. It's the human commitment underneath all of it, generation after generation, to keep gathering what we know, keep handing it forward, and keep rebuilding whenever the last version inevitably starts to crack. That commitment is the only part of this story that has survived every single collapse so far. Everything else has always, eventually, been rebuilt.